Amelia lived in a quiet, unassuming house, its walls painted a comforting shade of cream that had begun to fade with the years, much like the vibrant memories she clung to. Each morning, the sun would filter through the old lace curtains, casting dappled patterns on the worn wooden floorboards, highlighting the elegant silver in her hair. She'd sit at her kitchen table, a chipped ceramic mug cradled in her graceful hands, watching the sparrows squabble over crumbs in her small, overgrown garden. Amelia was a woman of routine, a creature of habit, and in the quiet rhythm of her days, a deep, persistent worry hummed beneath the surface. She was a retiree, and while her pension provided a modest comfort, it was a comfort that felt increasingly fragile in a world that seemed to spin faster and demand more with each passing year. Her small wish, whispered to the morning sun, was simple: to live out her days without the gnawing fear of outliving her savings, to perhaps even leave a little something behind for her grandniece, Lily. It was a lonely wish, born of quiet desperation, a silent plea for a little more breathing room, a little more peace. She often felt like a weary traveler in a vast, unpredictable desert, searching for an oasis that promised not just survival, but a chance to truly thrive in her golden years. One blusty autumn afternoon, as Amelia was meticulously pruning her rose bushes, a sleek, dark car pulled up to her curb. Out stepped a stunning young woman in a perfectly tailored suit, her smile as polished as her expensive leather shoes. This was Miss Serafina, a financial advisor Amelia had been introduced to by a distant acquaintance. Miss Serafina possessed an almost hypnotic charm, her voice a smooth, reassuring alto that promised solutions. She spoke of a new kind of investment, a revolutionary approach that turned the chaotic energy of the market into a steady stream of income. She didn't use complex jargon. Instead, she painted vivid pictures. Imagine, Amelia. She'd begun, leaning forward conspiratorially across Amelia's modest living room table, walking into a casino, not to gamble, but to collect. You simply hold the chips, and the house pays you. Not a small percentage, but a generous, almost unbelievable rate, month after month. It's like finding a hidden spring in the desert, a constant flow of water when everyone else's rationing drops. Amelia listened, captivated. Miss Serafina described how this special fund could generate annualized interest rates of 50, even 100%, deposited directly into her account. It sounded mathematically impossible, a glitch in the matrix of traditional finance. Yet Miss Serafina presented it with such conviction, backed by glossy brochures and impressive-looking charts, that Amelia felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. This wasn't about risky bets, Miss Serafina assured her, but about harvesting the market's volatility, turning its ups and downs into predictable income. It was the oasis Amelia had been dreaming of, a promise of financial freedom that felt almost too good to be true, yet desperately real in her weary heart. She felt a connection forming, a fragile bridge built on the promise of security. Amelia, after much deliberation and a few more reassuring calls with Miss Serafina, decided to invest a significant portion of her savings into this new fund. The initial months were exhilarating. Each deposit notification on her phone felt like a small victory, a tangible proof that her gamble had paid off. She started to allow herself small luxuries she'd long denied: a new set of gardening tools, a subscription to a nature magazine, even a small, thoughtful gift for Lily. The gnawing worry began to recede, replaced by a quiet contentment. She even dared to share her excitement with her old friend, Eleanor, a beautiful retired librarian who had always been the epitome of cautious, long-term investing. Eleanor, with her spectacles perched on her nose, listened patiently, her brow furrowed in concern. "Amelia," she'd said gently, "that sounds incredibly risky. If it's too good to be true, it usually is. Are you sure you understand how it works?" Amelia, buoyed by her recent successes, had brushed off her concerns. "It's different, Eleanor. This isn't about growth. It's about income. Steady, reliable income. She felt a surge of pride, believing she had found a secret path to prosperity. But as the months turned, a subtle shift began. While the monthly payments continued, Amelia noticed the value of her initial investment. The principal was slowly, almost imperceptibly, shrinking. It was like a tire with a slow leak, losing air without a dramatic puncture. She'd check her statements, a knot forming in her stomach. Miss Serafina had mentioned NAV Decay in passing, a technical term Amelia had dismissed as minor, but now it was a cold, hard reality. The fund's share price was bleeding out. She felt a growing unease, a tightening in her chest. The initial euphoria began to give way to a creeping anxiety. She tried to call Miss Serafina, but her calls were met with increasingly vague assurances, or simply went unanswered. The oasis, once shimmering with promise, now seemed to shimmer with an unsettling mirage-like quality. Then came the letter from the Taxman, a stark reminder that this income was taxed at the highest rate, eroding her gains. It felt like a cruel joke, a silent thief picking her pockets even as she received her dividend. The joy of the deposits was overshadowed by the fear of her dwindling principal. The quiet comfort was replaced by a deeper sense of worry than before. She was caught between the allure of the high yield and the harsh reality of her shrinking nest egg. This conflict churned within her, making her mornings restless and her nights sleepless. The market entered a period of intense volatility. Amelia watched, horrified, as the stocks her fund tracked soared. TSLY and NVDY were making headlines with their rises, yet her fund barely budged. The monthly income was constant, but her principal remained stubbornly low. She remembered Miss Serafina's explanation about selling the upside potential. Now it felt like a cruel trick, like selling her winning ticket for coins before the race. Her capital gains were capped, forcing her to watch soaring stock prices from the sidelines. The reverse stock split was the final blow, a cosmetic attempt to hide the erosion. Her investment was now a fraction of its original value. Despite the income, she felt foolish, betrayed, and regretful for not heeding Eleanor's warnings. The weight of her mistake stole her appetite and sleep. The oasis a quicksand trap. She was no longer seeking water. She was drowning in a desert of her own making. She found an online forum where investors discussed these funds and met Lena. Lena, a sharp, income-focused tactical trader, spoke with blunt honesty. These funds aren't for long-term growth, Amelia. They're dangerous for novices. They're for tactical traders who understand volatility, to squeeze juice out of a sideways market. Lena's words were a harsh truth, but also a lifeline. Amelia realized she had misunderstood the investment and wasn't a savvy investor. She had been a hopeful woman who mistook a specialized tool for a universal solution. She focused on the yield, ignoring how it was generated by sacrificing appreciation. The challenge wasn't just the market, but her lack of understanding. She felt a shift, realizing the turning point was her own awakening to the truth. Amelia began reevaluating her situation, having lost a portion of her principal. She had gained understanding and called Eleanor, confessing, "You were right." Eleanor listened without judgment, saying, "It happens to the best of us." Their friendship, strained earlier, was now mended and stronger. Amelia began rebuilding her portfolio, focusing on diversified, long-term investments. She learned about patience, compounding, and understanding every detail of an investment. She had less than she started with, but she had peace of mind. She found comfort in the steady growth of her new investments, building a sustainable future. She revisited the oasis metaphor, but this time, she understood true sustenance came not from a single spring that might dry up, but from a well-maintained, diversified garden, tended with care and knowledge. She started teaching Lily, her grandniece, about saving and investing, sharing her hard-won wisdom, not just about money, but about critical thinking and not falling for promises that seemed too good to be true. She found a new purpose in sharing her story, hoping to spare others her painful lesson. The quiet worry that had once defined her mornings was replaced by a gentle resolve. She understood true financial security wasn't about finding a magic bullet, but about making informed choices, accepting realistic returns, and embracing the journey of continuous learning. Amelia, though scarred, emerged from her ordeal with a profound sense of self-growth, a quiet strength born from adversity. She had found her true oasis, not in a dazzling yield, but in the clarity of understanding and the wisdom of experience, finally finding the peace she had so desperately sought.